Welcome to the Dishy Switch Podcast, your one-stop shop for South African ultimate development and what's happening in the international stage as well. This week we have another very exciting interview for you. If you're new to this channel and you like what we do, please consider subscribing. Give us a like so the algorithm can be kind to us, and hit a notification bell icon so that you are notified when we post our next videos. We normally post on Sundays, 7 o'clock SAST, South African time. You can find us on Instagram at Dishy_Switch. And with that, I switch to Dylan with the news.
Cool. Let's go local news. And there is no local news, so let's go straight to international news. So very recently, we figured out the teams that are going to the World Games. Unfortunately, because we had no WGC last year, that's normally what they base the World Games rankings off, and they take the top 8 mixed teams. Unfortunately, we didn't have that, and we have had no international tournament that allows teams to qualify before that within 4 years, so they used the previous WGC. So the teams that they have chosen, in no particular order, are the United States, Australia, Canada, Japan, Colombia, Great Britain, France, and Germany. Some pretty good teams there. The one thing, however, that I did see some people speak about is how France should potentially not be there. And the reason for that is they didn't do very well at the EUF. Is it called that? EUC, European Ultimate Championships. They came 6th. And so it was Great Britain, Germany, and then Russia came 3rd. So there's been a case made from some outsiders that say that Russia should go instead of France. And what I'm hoping for is the ultimate showdown where they play each other for the rights to go to the World Games. One match to decide it all. What do you think, Korn?
As exciting as that obviously sounds, because, I mean, like you mentioned before this podcast when we chatted about it, one team has everything to lose and the other team has everything to gain, which would be quite interesting. I mean, my opinion, when you look at the list that you just mentioned, there's a gaping hole, which is representation by an African team. So you have, I mean, the US and Canada from North America, you have Colombia from South America, Japan and Australia from Oceania, and then continental European teams like Germany and France in this instance. And in my opinion, we should have an African team in there. And our goal with Honey Badgers was to have that be a South African team. So obviously disappointed that we didn't get to go, and that was our goal to qualify for this. But I hope this is the last time we see this layout. I mean, obviously you want an African team to be in there and be merited to be there, and that's where we come from as well as South Africans. We are a very competitive sporting nation, but hopefully this is the last time we see this. Next time I want to see an African team in there, and a team that does very well.
There was actually, in the article that spoke about Russia, there was a case made that because there was no proper rankings from Worlds, that they should potentially give rankings out, or give bids out according to regions. So, you know, the Northern American region could get 2, the Southern American region could get 1 or 2, the European region could get 2 or 3 because they're quite big. And in that it said that Africa could potentially get 1 as well. And just looking at the all Africas that we've had, South Africa's come first in all of them that we've attended, which is only 2. Yeah. But I mean, still a really positive case on our side. You would want to see representation. It is a little bit unfortunate that we don't get to, but at the same time, I guess Worlds would have been the deciding factor for us there, and we could have made it. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened, so maybe we could join the showdown, France versus Russia. You know, we'll just arrive and be like, hey, we challenge you to an ultimate battle. Let's go. But just after they play as well, so that we have a little bit of advantage. You know, they need to be tired.
So you're saying is we need to get the band back together.
Let's do it. Let's get the band back together. Phone Darren.
Yeah.
But now that we spoke about Darren, Korn, do you want to introduce him for today?
Sure. So we've really excited to have a conversation with a South African ultimate legend, Darren Holcomb from the Long Donkeys, St. Pietermaritzburg. Darren has been playing ultimate since the year 2000, which is a very long time. For those of you who don't immediately recognize the name, you'll know him as the very tall gent on, or one of the very tall gents at Long Donkeys, but he's the one that throws the thumber rather than throwing a forehand flick. And if you've ever played against them, you'll know that thumber is a bit of a superpower. It's not just a throw. It does things that throwers are not supposed to be able to do. Darren is not just an incredibly successful player with his Long Donkeys program. He's also represented South Africa on the international stage with the Mambas in 2012 in Japan, with the Scorpions at WUGC in Hertfordshire, London, which is the Masters Opens team, and then he played on the Long Donkeys' Opens team at WCC 2018 in Cincinnati. So a lot of international experience to back up and support all the success Darren has had locally in the mixed division with the Donkeys and in the Opens division. And without further ado, let's chat to Darren.
Hey Darren, it's great to have you here today, repping all the trophies behind you, showing us, just flexing a little bit with your ultimate skill and from what you've told us, basketball skill. Something that I don't really know about you is, when did you start playing ultimate?
So ultimate in Maritzburg was pretty much introduced by one of the lecturers at UKZN, was in UNP. And the very first people to go down and join the lecture were Trevor Stain and Alistair van Heerden. And that would have been in about 2000. And there were about 4 guys that were playing on a patch of grass. And Alistair was one of my basketball teammates, and he worked for me for a while. I was like, no, Frisbee, you guys are joking. This is ridiculous. Eventually, he got me down there. So it was about 2020 when I started playing. I still remember that first practice. I finished that practice and I was like, I've just got to make it back to that bench without puking and I'll be okay. I was absolutely exhausted. But yeah, 2000 was when I ultimately started playing.
Yeah, there's probably not many players that have been playing more than you, probably just like Ant Pascoe.
Yeah, so Andrew was around. We remember him well. Neil, I don't know if Neil's still running in Cape Town, but he was one of the guys who hosted us when we first started. Our first tournament we were Savage, and Neil was the guy who got to look after the donkey team. And yeah, so we, for 2 years, I think we stayed in Neil's flat. Myself, Kurt, and Keegan were 3 of the donkeys there. Yeah, but yeah, not many of the guys are left. John Davidge was around at that point as well. He was there. Stu from Salusa is still going. I know he doesn't practice much anymore, but he rocks up for quite a few tournaments. But yeah, not many guys left.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, Neil only plays offense now. If you turn the disc, he's just like, sorry, guys.
Look, I understand that totally. I'm relegated to the O-line now as well. So I understand totally.
So just on offense, because this fits just so well, why don't you throw a forehand? Why do you throw a thumber instead?
Look, as I said, when we started playing, we had an American guy kind of showed us some basic throws, but I mean, we didn't throw a forehand in KZN for the first 2 years of playing. You know, we just didn't know what that was. We knew you could throw one, but none of us knew how to do it. And I managed to figure out that with a thumber, I could unleash a forehand. The first pass was about 2.5 meters, but we were all very excited. The game came to a halt. We kind of celebrated, and then we moved on. And you know, I could throw the thumber, and you know, it wasn't a disadvantage with my height. I could get it past and over most people. And so the thumber kind of just stuck around. It wasn't like I was battling with accuracy in terms of it. So hence, no need to change. I can throw a flick, but not nearly as accurate or as well as I can throw the thumber.
I suppose if you've been throwing a thumber for 20 years, it's going to be as good as yours is. When we played you guys in the October final with Viking in, was it 2019, with that crosswind across the field, there's a throw you did where you could see the disc biting against the wind. It's just so stable and there's so much rotation on that quick release. It's quite incredible. I don't think there's any other throw that compares to that, actually.
Yeah, also there's probably no other throw that you get mocked as much for. So there are advantages and disadvantages. But I mean, the first Worlds tournament I went to, some guy was tweeting from Sky magazine. He's like, guys, there's a former South African basketball throwing thumbers out here. He was tweeting about it. I was like, oh, yeah, so you get mocked a little bit. But hey, as long as the disc gets to where it needs to go and you can throw it in wind and in calm conditions, I'm certainly not going to be changing at this point in my career.
Yeah.
Well, when you and I played a little bit of disc golf at the tryouts, the Gauteng tryouts for honey badgers. So I got to see the thumber up and close. And it's just, it's like a laser beam. You put it exactly where you want it. So I don't think anyone has a forehand that accurate. It's amazing.
Okay. I wish my golf game was the same. That's pretty much all over the place. But, but yeah, it generally gets where it needs to go. Obviously, there are some mishaps. In the early years, there were a few that used to go to ground quite early on, but yeah, those have been eliminated. So yeah, pretty lucky in that regard.
I do remember playing you like in the kind of earlier days. Sorry, Corn. Not quite earlier days, maybe like 2016, when as my first win against you as UCT, the Rocktober that we took away from you, and back in those days you didn't really throw backhands either. It was really a thumber or a hammer, and I was marking you backhand, being like, yeah, this is what we normally do, and you suddenly step out and you threw like an amazing backhand. I was like, who is this man that I'm marking that can now throw 3 throws?
Oh, when the skiing gets incorporated into this game, you guys are in trouble then. So, yeah, I know. I think it was Ryan Purcell who really got me to work on my low release backhand, because playing for the Mambas in 2012 in Japan, those training camps, they were ruthless, and Ryan was just like, look, you've got a game that's different to everybody else's. We need you in the team, but that's what we're going to have to work on. And so many hours working on that backhand to get it to a point where I can confidently throw it. I still prefer to go to the forehand. There's no doubt about that. But if the forehand's taken away, I can generally make a pass with the backhand now.
What is the low release?
Talking about Japan, sorry, Dil.
No,
I just actually want to ask about that because we don't have it on our list of questions, which is, that would have been, I think, quite a culture shock for you, playing Opens Division, coached by a very experienced American player. Ryan Purcell played for Ironside and Boston University and eventually Double Wide. What was that like, going to Japan and representing?
Look, it was amazing. And I mean, arguably one of the better Mambas teams that has been there. I mean, not taking nothing away from the other teams, but it really was a really good side. I mean, Ryan Purcell and Finn were in their prime. We had players in every position that really could do what they needed to do. A few of the guys who joined us who were overseas at the point really helped out. Sean Faree I was paired with him. He was my mum buddy. And he was my height, could run, could dive, could jump, So we're really a good team. But I remember some of those games were savage, man. I mean, there was one game against New Zealand. I don't think we've ever beaten New Zealand, but there was a howling wind, and wind is a great equalizer. We eventually lost it on Universe, but we got wins over Italy, we got wins over the Netherlands. So it really was a great tournament and a lot of learning, And yeah, look, I loved it. I really liked playing for the Mambas. I was the only donkey there, if I remember correctly. Alistair van Heerden was playing for the Maracas at that point. He was across the other side, and Ryan and Heather were across there as well. I was the only donkey in the open team, and it was a bit of a culture shock, but I loved it there. I like anything competitive, so if I can beat somebody at something, that's what I want to do. I just want to. So yeah.
Just quickly taking it back to the South African context. So obviously we've all said it. You play for the Donkeys. How did you get the name the Long Donkeys? I kind of assume because you and Alistair are very tall.
I wish it was that simple. We were young, we were at varsity, we were students, we thought it was hilarious. Long Donkey is renowned, So it's a name that we thought about changing many times, but we had won a few trophies, and so we couldn't get rid of it. And so, we generally refer to as the Donkeys now, but when it goes into the trophy, it's the Long Donkeys. But yeah, the Long Donkeys weren't only a frisbee side either. We had a basketball team, the Long Donkeys. We had a hockey team, the Long Donkeys, and it was all the same guys just playing sport together. Alistair and I and Kurt Berachivi, who was one of the original Long Donkeys, played in all those games together. But no, the ladies in our team are less proud than we are, and I must admit it's a bit embarrassing now that we are named after the anatomy of a donkey. Nonetheless, as I said, as a student, we thought it was hilarious. Even our quiz team at one of the quiz nights was a long donkeys and a piece of ass, because we had one lady in our team.
Oh, wow.
As students, hilarious.
Yeah, for sure. So, now 20 years later, the Long Donkeys is a major brand in South African Ultimate. And with the success you've had, you have to think that this brand, this identity you've created as a team, it's worth a few points just in terms of intimidation before you even walk onto the field. But besides that and the work you've put in, what makes your program so good?
It's a tough question. I think the intimidation factor is there, especially with the newer, younger teams. I recall a few years ago we were playing in Cape Town. It was at Rondebosch School, and as Alice and I climbed out the car, we walked past a bunch of guys we didn't know, and they're like, "That's them, that's the donkeys," And myself and Alice, there's a little bit of pride that creeps up inside you when you hear that. But look, we've got a few fundamental rules. There's no moaning on the field. No one's allowed to shout at anybody else. We occasionally get that wrong. And then I have to speak to Sean. But apart from that, the rule is, the person really feels bad. He knows he's made a mistake. She knows they made a mistake. And so there's a culture of just playing for each other. And I think all of us have played fairly high-level sport in one form or another, whether that was from basketball or if it was cricket. The Frenzels were big cricketers, or Trevor, who's just good at everything. He's a top squash player, top golfer, top everything. And so when you arrive at a donkey's practice, it really is you're thrown into a competitive mix, which is unbelievable. And so I think that really has helped us, because some of our toughest games are the Sunday afternoon games. We train 3 times a week, and Sunday afternoon is the big game. We played a 15 in that game, and we divide the teams as equally as possible, and then we go at each other. And some of our toughest games are played there. Often those games are won on Universe. Oh, wow. With a minute left in practice. So yeah. So I think that's a huge advantage for us, is because we just play so much competitive frisbee. We don't follow the trend when it comes to drilling and the rest of it. We learn to play in the game. Because we play so much, we also know each other's strengths and weaknesses well, which, it helps a lot. But also, I think because we've been around for so long, and there's quite a few of us that have been there, we know the strengths and weaknesses. So we know who the teams are. We know who the main players are. We know what they like to do. So, it's been an awesome ride, but I think those are the things that have really helped us. The intimidation factor is probably worth 2 or 3 points in those early games, but after that, people realize that they can run with us, and then that's what we're really looking for, is when they bring it. And Dill was part of that team that brought it and took our trophy away from us on our home turf, so he knows the feeling.
It was a very good feeling, to be honest.
It wasn't so happy with it, but it was a very good win.
It was a fantastic tournament for both our sides, and just to have it come down to one final game where we just took a little bit of the edge in the beginning and we traded from there. So it's hard when the whole crowd is against you, which is not normally the case when you play the donkeys. People stealing our cheers, it got to me, but then I had to be like, no, play the match.
Yeah, that was our BP. They quite like that.
So you say that your practices are so hard, but how do you get people to buy into that? Like, just practice as hard as you can. We're here to really put our time into it. Because I just feel that people very often, you just come to practice, you're seeing your friends, you're having a good time, but you struggle to get that, like, we're playing a game right now mentality in practice.
Yeah, look, that's not a problem we've ever had, Dill. And I think it's because all of us have had a lifetime. In my case, in Alistair's case, we've had a lifetime of competitive sport. When you're outside the 4 lines of the field or the court, you mates. But once you cross over that line, it really is, it's a change in attitude and a change in tone, and you now here to play. And so if I'm playing against Alistair, who's probably my oldest, closest mate, if he's on the opposition, I want to beat him. I want to stop him. And the same applies for him and me. And it's been like that through the basketball days. It's been like that through the frisbee days. And I think that's a mentality that sells, or that the donkeys buy into. When you arrive at donkey practice, if you're able to get through 2 or 3 practices, we know that you're a keeper, because it's not for everybody. There are certain people that just want to come down and have a good time, and that's absolutely fine. But from the donkey's perspective, you're playing to win, and if you don't push yourself on the field, there's a good chance someone's going to walk over to you and say, "Listen, bud, this is our one practice of the week that we get to really go at each other. You need to step it up." So yeah, and look, it worked. I mean, we've got, I think, in excess of 50 members now that have signed up yearly for the donkeys. So we've got a big squad, and regularly we'll have 2 7-on-7 games going with subs on the sideline. So we've got quite a nice pool that we draw from, and yeah, it's worked for us.
So I've heard recently from someone that they said that your throughput is quite high. Is that true? So you get a lot of people just come and go and not buy into the sport?
No, not really. So look, we get quite a few homeschoolers in the Maritzburg area that have joined us. They obviously don't have big, there's 10 big boys schools in KZN. I teach at one of them, but if you're a homeschooler, you don't have access to that sport and the rest of it. So we've got quite a few homeschoolers that come through us. And a lot of them are quite mild and gentle when they arrive. But, there's definitely 1 or 2 that don't stay with us. But I would say the vast majority of the people who start with us, they stick with us. And I think the reason for that is because although we are competitive, because of our rules about no shouting and the rest of it, you're very likely to get one of the senior players come over to you and you made a mistake and say, "Look, this is what you did. This is what you could have done. Don't do this next time. Try and do this," and you work on it. So I think there's also, although it's competitive, there's a nurturing atmosphere. And so our throughput is not bad at all. I mean, certainly there are people that have arrived and didn't like the way the sort of competitive nature of every game, but the vast majority of people have stuck around. I mean, look at Juan's son, who's probably been with us since he started playing when he was 5. He used to stand in the end zone and catch at that point, but he's now a cranky teenager and doing well. So he's now got a forehand and all the bits and pieces that go with it.
Oh, nice.
I mean, Pia Stain, who you guys will know well from Cape Town Frisbee, she's playing with us at the moment. She's back home at the moment. I mean, I think her first tournament, she might have been 10. And she was a key player as a 10-year-old as well. So, there's a full range there of people, and a full range from absolute athletes to very raw beginners. So, yeah.
So from the humble beginnings in 2000, you guys were in quite a few finals before you finally won your first one. I mean, I remember, I think you won a final in 2010 and you won a final in 2012 against Ghost. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the first one you did win was 2014. So that was Ronnebosch in Cape Town. You beat Chile in the final. What was that like? What was it like finally getting that win?
That was amazing. I still remember taking photos of the trophy leaving Cape Town for the first time. It had never left Cape Town. We were like in the aeroplane, like it's it didn't matter where it was going. It was just leaving Cape Town for the first time. Look, losing all those finals, because it wasn't just nationals. Yeah, we lost a few in October as well. We just couldn't get past Chile. They were just a team that really had our number. No matter how good we thought we were, they had worked it out. They had us waxed. I mean, I think it was there was a player from Sub-Zero that played the 1 year for them.
Jack Mosh.
Yeah, Jack Mosh. And he absolutely obliterated us. I think we lost to Universe.
Yeah.
We thought we had it that year, and he just tore us apart. And we eventually lost to Universe. I remember there was a throw from Juan to Carl, which was a meter wide, and they came down and finished that off. So there was a time when we thought, yes, are we ever going to get one of these? Because final after final after final, we just didn't have the legs to push through. And I think that was one of our biggest issues, was not in terms of our skill set, but we were often very close to Savage, the Donkeys team in those early years. And once our squad started growing, we started getting 16, 17 players coming to the tournament. It just meant that by the time you got to the final, you were so much fresher. And so the likes of the Frenzels joining us and a few other key players that really did assist. It helped a lot. But no, that first victory, it was sweet. And we were the underdogs then as well, so everybody was shouting for you. I mean, I remember after the game when we'd won, they were like, "Can we trade for your jersey?" I was like, "Take it, have it." We won. Photos of myself and Trev and Alistair, the remaining original donkeys taken together, finally holding onto this trophy.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing feeling, absolutely amazing.
That's almost the feeling that anyone gets when they beat you nowadays.
Yeah, we try to limit that as much as possible. So, but yeah, the bottom line is that there will come a time when the donkeys are no longer the top team, and that's fine. That's great. That's how it's supposed to be. And so, what we want is for every game to be like a final. If every game of a tournament could be a universe point, we would absolutely take that. We just like to play competitive disc. We don't want to win 15-0. We want to arrive at a tournament and be pushed hard. And so, we get really excited when we hear that there are going to be French teams in a tournament or something along those lines, because it's just another team that we get to take on and test our skills against. And a team that hasn't seen the way we play, because I think it is unique. It's, certainly isn't the way most of the American teams or most of the South African teams play. And I suppose that's because we sort of developed in isolation. We were this little town in Maritzburg, and little team in Maritzburg rather, and we found a way to make it work.
So on the way that you play, I mean, of course, you play a lot of junk, you play a lot of zone. How did you get to that point of deciding to play that instead of man? Obviously, there must have been some kind of basketball influence.
Yeah, so look, basketball, you run zone defenses and you run man defenses, and so there was an influence from basketball that we brought across, but it wasn't. I think it was in Cape Town the first time that we just decided, no, enough of this, and we had a really high mileage zone. The cup used to run all over the place, but it seemed to work, and again we did things our way. People told us, no, this is how a cup would work, and we're like, well, they're going to dump if we do that. So we would put somebody right behind the cup. You want to dump here, well, you're going to have to go over this person. So it kind of developed, and I remember it was against UCT. They had figured out our cup, and they were just slaughtering us in one of the semi-final games. And it was either Joburg or Cape Town. And eventually we're like, you know what? If we just put 3 oaks up front and we put 3 oaks in between that, surely that's going to cause problems. And our zone has developed since then. That's really what we've worked on. And it takes a little time when people join us, because a lot of what we do and know is just instinctual because we've been doing it for so long. But that's what we run with now. But having said that, just recently we've started reintroducing man, because we've got a team that we can put on the field now that is super athletic and super quick. I am not on the field when that happens. But if I can put the 3 Frenzels on the field with Juan and Carl, I've got a team, and Claudia is one of our ladies, and Jen is one of our ladies. I can really put a team out there that can compete with the quickest guys in the country. And so a lot of the time now is what we do is we have a zone line and a man line, just to mix things up, because everybody's so expecting a zone when they play against us. But often it's the man that actually makes the change and makes the break and allows us to get a bit of a gap in between. And I think, Corne, if I'm not mistaken, we played a lot of man against you guys, against Homebrew when we met you guys in the final. We went to our speedsters and said, right, this is what we're going to do. So the zone is a huge part of our game, but the man is definitely being reintroduced as something we can go to. Interestingly, when we had world club champs, we tried playing man there. We got owned, and we went back to our zone. And even at that level, we were forcing teams to make 80 passes before they scored. The difference was that they could make 80 passes, whereas in South Africa, generally after pass number 10 to 15, you're looking good for a turnover. So
So the 2018 WCC Worlds that you sent your men's team to, we chatted about this before we met, which is we thought that maybe that experience where a lot of teams play person defense influenced your mindset to bring back person defense into your playbook as well. Was that part of it, or was it just that you wanted a counterfoil for your junk defense?
Look, I think a bit of both. I mean, if you're playing against the best teams in the world, you'd be a fool not to learn from them.
Yeah.
I mean, playing against General Strike, just the things they did and how they did, we had to learn from them. And surprisingly, it was one of the weaker teams that we played against. They beat us quite convincingly. They taught us the most. It was a team called Juggernaut from Australia, and they were the team that we were really targeting to try and get a win in our pool games, because they were seeded well below everybody else. I mean, above us, but well below everybody else. And they watched one or two of our games, and they just took away all our unders. They just forced us to play outside of our comfort zone. And it was learning from experiences like that throughout the tournament was absolutely great. And I mean, I'm sure teammates of yours in the past have been in similar situations. You watch Frisbee on TV and like, I can do that, man. I can hang with these folks. When you actually are playing against those guys, they're just that step faster and that more accurate and that more willing to put their body on the line. What was lovely to see was just the guys who had never played at that level before, quickly just taking those steps up to make sure that they were able to cope. In particular, Carl Grunewald, I just saw him go from this level to this level in a matter of days, because, again, an intellectual who understood the game, who has athleticism, and he was just able to adjust his game as he went, was magnificent to watch. So, Corne, both sides, learning from that tournament, as well as having another option to go to when a team figures out how to break us, because it is breakable. I mean, John Louise, playing for Chile a few years ago, learned very quickly where he should be hammering to, and we had to adapt quite quickly. So, yeah.
One of my favorite parts of playing the Donkeys is that you always have something new. It's like you go back to your laboratory, and then you figure out some other things you can throw at us when you come and play Cape Town teams. And one of the things you do really well is you play your junk defense, but you have one person sacrificed as a person defender, taking the main handler or something like that. And that, I mean, most teams might not think that's a big move, but goodness, you guys make it work. You just completely nullify an offense with one move.
Yeah, look, again, it comes from basketball side of things. In basketball, we call it a box and one. When there's a dominant player on the other team, you want to try to zone that key area up for most of the players, but you want to make it as hard as possible for the top player to score. And so it's kind of a scenario that we brought across from that is, you know what, if we can make that star's life as tough as possible and force other people to make the plays rather than him or her, then we're in a good position. And the same applies to our team. There are certain people that I know that the opposition want to try and nullify as quickly as possible. But yeah, look, we like to throw things out there. We've tried a few defenses over the years. The Australians ran a wall defense at one of the tournaments we went to, and we tried to incorporate that. We haven't got that quite right yet. It's a tough defense to learn. We watch quite a lot of footage, but the transitions are tough, and it's a lot of mileage on a few of the team, and so we haven't quite got that right. But we always try new things. Even at practice. Today we were playing a zone and it wasn't working, so there was an adjustment to a junk defense, adjustment to a man. So throwing things out there until you find something that gives them problems. It will only give them problems for a while because they're good players, but they can give you a 2-3 point buffer. That's absolutely great.
The point you made about your WCC experience in 2018, about how good some of those players are that you see on television. I mean, it's one thing to play against them. And when you were talking about that, it reminded me of Jack Marsh, where I got to play a league game with and train with. And it's quite something different to have that player exhibit what they bring. It's like footwork is just simply at quite a different level, and the vision of what they see. They see a different field to how I see it at the very least.
Absolutely.
And you I mean, because you're exposed to that kind of level, you're forced to improve. You're forced to step it up. And it sounds like that was the kind of experience some of your players had too at Worlds.
No, absolutely. You're forced to make those adjustments, because if you don't, you're just going to get beaten 15 duck. It's that simple. You've got to try to find a way to win. So, it doesn't have to be pretty. Winning dirty is still winning. It doesn't need to look great. I mean, I recognize that my thumb is not majestic and elegant, but the bottom line is, if it helps win a game, then so be it. But yeah, and look, I think for all those players out there who haven't experienced the sort of the international level, sure, it really is an eye-opener. And I think that's across the board. It's in all sports. You sit and watch on TV and you think, I can do that. And, look, making that pass, I can make that pass, I can see that. But you just don't, you can't imagine how it's just the small bit that they're better in everything that makes them miles better than you. It really is amazing. So you go to those, you eat some humble pie, and you come back and you try and improve the game. And I know we had some plans with the badges to show the rest of the world what the South Africans, the Saffers, could actually do, which unfortunately didn't come to fruition. But I still think that when we put the best players together in a team and they're well trained, we're going to have a team that is formidable and probably can't win the tournament, but certainly can raise a few eyebrows and say, "Oh, those blokes, we got to watch out for them." And that's the plan, that's what we need out there. We need more teams that are doing that.
Agreed.
So just again, bringing back to the South African context. So obviously your mixed team is your main dominant presence at the moment, winning almost every national since 2014. The only ones you haven't won was against UCT and the one that you didn't attend. And
yes.
In terms of your open division, I think you've almost won every. I remember beating you once with Chile, but that's probably also one or two since 2014, 2015, basically since we started that. And your women's team has also pretty much done the same. How would you say your mixed division affects both of those divisions, and would you say it's the same intensity and that kind of stuff?
Well, that's a tough question. It's a different type of intensity. So, and I mean no disrespect, but when it's a mixed game, it's a slightly slower speed. There's more time on the disc. There's more time to make decisions. Look, every week when we practice as a mixed team. When it comes to opens and women's, at that point we divide normally 2 or 3 weeks before just to get things going. The ladies train on one side and men train on the other side of the field. But I would say 3 weeks in a year that we aren't playing as a mixed team. So that is where we spend most of our time. And then ultimately when we get to those bigger tournaments and we know homebrew are coming for us, then we start putting in the time and try just work a few things out. But look, I'm very lucky in that regard. I've got fantastic lady captains. I've got fantastic male captains that work alongside me, and there's just never an issue. It's just we divide, we play. That's how it's always been in Maritzburg. I mean, from those early days. When we first started, a big game was a 3-on-3 game. So there's nowhere to hide there. You just run and run and run. And now, as I say, we've got plenty guys playing. So yeah.
I was going to say that normally at the larger tournaments, which is the mixed division for us at the moment, you guys only really get tested as a team by the semi-finals. I mean, I've heard stories of you only conceding a max of 4 or 5 points by the time you get to the last 4.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had your ups and downs, even though from the outside, you've been incredibly successful as a program. In those moments, I can remember, and this is a long time ago, say 2012 October in Port Elizabeth, where you lost to the Chile in the group, which is a long time ago now, but it was super windy, a very tough game. Or losing to, say, the Chile men's team, opens team in 2014 in Durban, or the October loss in Pretoria. These are not common for your program, but how do you get your team to bounce back from that? How do you just come back stronger each time?
Corey, it's a will to win. So we want people to challenge us. We don't enjoy it winning 15-0, 15-0, 15-0, and then getting to play when we get to the semi-finals. We would like every game to be competitive, and obviously we're never going out there to lose a game. But when we are beaten, and in 2017 in particular, the UC team was just better than us. James Ivey did a brilliant job of bringing together some very talented players, but we were bleak to hear that was the last year that they were breaking up after that, because we never ever got the chance to play against them again. So from our side, being beaten drives us further. It's the competitive nature. We want to play against the best, and we want to see if we can beat the best. And then in South Africa, for a long time, the next best team was UCT, and that's the game we looked forward to above all others. It was the game that we really wanted to. Year of COVID 2020, we were really looking forward to playing against Skyhawk. They suddenly had Christine had moved up there, and it was just, they had this team, and we were like, this is going to be awesome, another team to really challenge and play against. And fortunately, due to COVID, it just didn't ever transpire. And I believe now a few of their players have left. Pete's gone, and so that was a loss. We were really looking forward to that challenge. We really enjoyed the Viking when they came through and they started becoming a dominant team. It was just another team to play against, because for me, the best tournament is when you get to play 7-8 games that are really tough, and then you go through tough semifinals and tough finals, and when you come out victorious in that, crikey, that is the best feeling. So getting beaten is not a bad thing. Getting beaten is the fuel that keeps you coming back, because now you're like, right, what are we going to do to fix this, to beat those guys? So yeah,
I was hoping to give you a challenge with Heat last year as well. We picked up all the good players that we could have.
I heard you guys were looking good, so yeah. But again, that's a year that we lost out on. I'm hoping, Dor, that you guys are still a good team. I haven't heard much recently, but the more teams we have that are strong, it can only lift the game. Because if you play, can you imagine if we could play against UCT and Chile and Homebrew every weekend? Like the Europeans have it going, where it's just every weekend is a tough game. That would push Frisbee so far in this country.
Agreed.
Unfortunately, because of the distance between our cities, often we have to wait for these big tournaments for the gatherings to occur. But if we could kind of figure out a European type format where you're just constantly moving and playing against the top teams, that's when you will really see Frisbee in South Africa start to progress.
What I would love to do is kind of have either one team goes to Maritzburg, or Maritzburg comes to us in Cape Town. If you had to come to Cape Town, you'd have probably 7 really competitive games to play in a weekend, and just play each other like 3 or 4 times in that weekend. If teams are willing to spend the money, of course.
Because I know we've never come to the Mother City Invitational, but that, I don't know if it's still an invitational where the teams from outside of the province can play. I know you use it as your qualifiers now, if I'm not mistaken. But if that is still a tournament that we could attend, we would be 100% keen to attend that. Again, we just want to play competitive Frisbee. We love playing, we love people, we just want to play. So yeah.
Actually, I go into that tournament a little bit nervous most of the time, because you're playing every Cape Town team basically at that tournament, and most of the time there's no easy matches, so you basically walk off one game straight into the how are we going to beat this next team. And that was the 2020 season for Heat. We were confident, we had a good team, but for most of the matches, we really had to push hard to make sure that team felt our presence. And I feel like there wasn't really many walkovers at that tournament, and that's exactly what you want. And I wish the rest of South African Ultimate, to get to that level. I heard that Scaffold only conceded 4 points at the tournament. You guys probably only conceded 4 points or 5 points at the tournament.
Yeah, it wasn't many, but as I say, again, I keep referring to the sort of international tournaments that we managed to attend, but in every game is decided by 1 point. At Worlds, after the first day, when we had lost 2 of our games, and myself, Alistair, and Barry Stradham had a meeting in the room for 3 of the senior players, and I was the only hander then. And El's comment to me was, D, not personal, but we need the handers to be better, because if a hander's making 2 turnovers, we are losing this game by 2 points. It's that simple. And the problem isn't the midfielders, it's not the guys who are getting long. It's the handlers are making passes which are not reaching their destination, and that's why we're losing. People just don't understand when every game matters. And sure, when you get 1 or 2 of those victories, it really is a great feeling, because you know that you've had to play the perfect game to win it. And look, I'm getting on in years now, so I don't know if I'll witness it in South African Frisbee, but I wish it for the game in South Africa.
So talking about your reference to your personal game there for a second, what are some of the most difficult defenders you've had on you as someone who mostly plays offense now? If you think back on your career, who's some of the most difficult players you've had match you?
Yeah, so look, internally, Ryan Martin, he marks me week in, week out, and he's a nightmare because he knows my game. He's quicker than me, and he is on me like a rash. He's the person that gives me the most nightmares, But we've had a few players when we were younger. John Davidge and I used to have some big matchups. The two 6'5", 6'6" guys, and we had some pearlers. But yeah, I suppose your Ryan Purcell marking me, that was tough as well, because he was just so much quicker than me. You know, I had the height advantage, but it takes quite a lot of confidence from a person who isn't a handler to kind of lob it back to you. They generally want to put it into space, and so Ryan Purcell was also extremely tough. And I remember some of those losses to Ghost back in the day. Ryan was on me. He was the person who was marking me, and so I'd say toughest matchups: Ryan Martin, Ryan Purcell, the double whammy there in the Ryans. But they were the two that I really had to have my A game on, and I had to work my butt off to get the disc. So yeah, those are the two, Cornet.
Cornet, we're not hurt at all, by the way.
Yeah, we have to change our names, it seems, to Ryan.
Yeah, we'll work on that. If I had a third or fourth position, I would have mentioned you guys, guaranteed.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it. No, it is. You're one of my favorite people to mark, because one of your things is you get the disc a lot. So of course you're mostly, you have to be like on the ball all the time, and you just have this way of cutting that's just these little small steps, and if you're like on your toes, you're able to stop it. I remember the one time again you made a proper cut. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this situation. He made a cut.
But you were thinking that. In my head I was like, what the hell am I doing? You and me both, we were both confused. I've never had the pace. You know, I'm a 6'5", 6'6" guy, and so raw pace has never been one of my strengths. My strength is using my footwork and my basketball moves to really seal players and to get to a spot where I can get the disc. And so that's what I've had to rely on. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed one or two of our matchups. I still remember one of the ones in Joburg in October where we both managed to grab the disc at the same time.
It's a beautiful picture, to be honest.
I've got a big stretch going on, and you're about 3 meters off the ground to get to the disc. It was wonderful.
I have people at work saying like, "Wow, I can't believe you can jump that high." But who is that monster that you're jumping against?
The best part of that was when I came down, I had to point out to you, look, we both got this. It's actually offensive disc. I still remember that conversation clearly. So yeah.
So do I, and it frustrates me so much because I was like, I tried so hard, and there's nothing else I could have done.
Well, anyway, look, you'll get plenty of those in the future. Trust me.
Yeah. No, you're great fun to mark. I mean, everyone on this call, it's fun to mark all of us, I assume. But yeah, I mean, just playing against your zone is just... you very recently moved to kind of front of... I don't know what to call it. The person that is marking... it's not really like a front of diamond, it's just chase, I guess. And that's an impossible role to get past you. Sometimes I consider going through your legs because that's the only open option.
Look, it's been done before, so... Look, I used to play at the very back when I first started Frisbee. At that point, I was still playing a lot of basketball, and I had a little bit of a jump on me. And I was a lot younger, a lot younger. But Kevin Frenzel has really made that position his own at the back. He is athletic, and he is fast, and he is able to shut things down. And so he was just better than me there. And one of the things I've still got going is when it's close disc, I can stay with the disc, and I've got a huge wingspan to get around. So being in the front of that zone, generally with the ladies on either side of me, I'm able to put a bit of pressure on you. And you only have to make the person pass an inch further and a little bit wide or a little bit lower. Suddenly there's a chance. So that's my role now in defense, and I enjoy it. It's quite cool as well. When you get a turnover, you're right up there on the disc, so you're able to get into the transition as quickly as possible. Whereas when I was at the back, often the donkey that picked up and had gone off and had scored the point before I'd even made my way to where the disc had been turned over. So being in the front, you're in the mix. It's quite cool up there. I quite like it.
So we've touched on some achievements you've had in your career and so on. What are some of your favorite memories if you're going to look back over the last 21 years of your career?
Oh, so the first Nationals win, that was a big one for us. The first October win over UCT, that was also a nice one for us. Our first titles, they're always sweet. You remember those, and then Yeah, I've enjoyed all my international stuff, but the two that stand out for me, I played for the Masters in the UK, and yeah, that team was just amazing. We just came together and we managed to win a whole bunch of games. And if it hadn't been for the rain, I think we were due to play against Japan to make it into the top 8. That was
Yeah.
our fixture, and we all got rained out, and so we never even got to see how that was going to go. But we got to a point where potentially a South African team could have been competing in the quarterfinals, and that for us was great.
Yeah, for sure.
That team as well, it was just it felt like family. It really did. It was the Donkeys and the Chilies had been competing for so long, and we made up the majority of that team, and it was just awesome. It was just we've been competing against each other so long that we knew each other backwards, and we just had this awesome team that really did brilliantly. So that was a major highlight. And then club champs. What to go play internationally with your mates, with your team? You can't fault that. It's an amazing experience, and one that we really would like to do at the mixed level. And so that's one of our goals now, is to try and qualify for World Club Champs and go to a mixed tournament, and kind of see what happens there. But yeah, those are my big highlights.
Do you think if you had to win in the following year, men's and mixed, do you think you would send both teams, or do you think you would focus on one and then probably give up the bid for the other?
No, if we happen to win both, if we were lucky enough to win both, we would focus on one, and I'm pretty confident that the focus would be on the mixed team, simply because some of our ladies came with us to World Clubs just to watch and support, but they haven't got to play at that level yet, and so that's really what we want to do. If we didn't win mixed and we happened to win open and there was a bid spot available, we would certainly take it. We wouldn't turn our backs on it. But if we were to win both, we would more than likely choose mixed and then give up the open spot and allow another team to experience that.
Yeah, so hopefully it's mutiny. I mean homebrew. I mean what?
Look, I'll leave you guys to sort that one out.
Yeah, I was just going to say the one positive thing is, I think with a lot of people coming through the UCT program and hopefully a few people pulling together now after COVID, I mean, we do have some new teams coming up, one being Nomad, which is a new team being made from quite a few UCT people and pickups from quite a few other places. But I mean, in terms of stars on that team, Scott Glennie, Louis, Nick Anderson, Darren Curry, just some really top guys. In terms of ladies, they have Dana if she's not playing for a Joburg team, potentially Christine if she's not playing for a Joburg team, and that's coming straight, I mean, into the mixed season. That's a very good team. And I mean,
yeah,
in terms of the open season, they didn't go to nationals last year, but Mutiny is very similar. Team started by myself and Scott, and hopefully these new teams have the goal, the one and only goal, to beat the Donkeys right at the top of the list.
Absolutely, and we welcome it, especially with Scott and Louis, because they both St. Charles boys. I taught them how to throw their first disc, so looking forward to seeing them on the field again.
You walk up to them and rub their head. It's so good to see you here today.
I still insist that they call me sir until they beat me, sir.
Oh, geez,
That's
wait.
fair.
So Scott can call you Darren, but Louis has to call you sir. Is that how it is?
Well, that's yeah, pretty much. Although training for the badges, I let Louis call me Darren because I was staying with him. It felt a bit awkward, but.
So, would you like any coffee or tea? Yeah, I mean, I'm also mostly out of questions. Darren, do you have anything to ask us? I mean, just about our program.
No. I don't have anything to ask you guys. I really just put together the strongest teams. We would love to play against strong teams all over the place. So, and then just to the two of you, thank you so much for what you're doing in terms of this podcast and in terms of making Frisbee more available to more people. It really is worthwhile. And I think, again, Cornell, you've been thanked for this before, but just thanking you for the effort that you put into the badges campaign. I'm sorry it never came to fruition because I was looking forward to playing with a teammate with both of you. But thank you for the effort you put in that regard. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you both on the field post-COVID. Hopefully this ends sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Agreed.
very excited to play you. I'm very excited to play against Cornet. Always two people I'm quite scared to mark. So yeah, I mean, just to close this off, it was great hearing from you. I love the competitive attitude that you have, and the competitive attitude that you have just kind of instilled inside of donkeys, and how you push them forward. Your leadership has definitely shaped your team, and I would say shaped South African Ultimate, in how people want to improve so that they can compete against you and against your team. And you know, as we always say, we really appreciate you coming on to the podcast and just bringing your insights and just learning about the competitive nature of donkeys and how you learn, and the I've said competitive like 6 or 7 times, but that was basically this whole podcast. So
thanks, Joel. I appreciate the kind words. I've just been very lucky to be surrounded with people that are leaders and athletes and like-minded. You know, I can't take any of the glory there. It really is the guys who are around me. And you know, we've got a few surprises for you guys with our new tour players. We're looking forward to having them running around the field with you, because I think Liam is 6'11", so and an absolute athlete. You have never seen it. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing how that's coped with. But thank you for your kind words. It really is appreciated. So thank you, Dill.
that's 2.11 meters. That's taller than a door. Okay, cool.
He's a large human being. I don't even try to jump because it's embarrassing. When he jumps before I've thought about jumping. I'm still waiting to get down to the range where I can jump at it, and he's already taken it. It's just.
You know how we feel.
Well, wait, Cornet, wait. It's totally different.
Thanks everyone for watching. Today was a really insightful episode with Darren. Just coming down all the way from Pietermaritzburg onto your screen. Just bring his insights on the competitive nature that the donkeys have and how they've just become this club that's, you know, the club to beat currently in South Africa. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time. Stay safe.
Cheers.